All right, welcome everybody, and with that, we will, it's 4 o'clock, and so we will officially begin our June Library Board meeting. Thank you for coming, everybody. And let's see. Any citizens' comments? I don't think we received any, did we? Did anybody want to talk?
Yep, we didn't receive any comments through email or any other mechanism.
All right, with that, moving on. So members of the board, anybody have any comments?
Hi, David. Yeah, I do have a comment. I was out at Lenexa City Center Library yesterday evening, and it was just so nice to see all the activity there. There were several programs going on, it looked like, and when I was upstairs helping my grandson pick out books, multiple people came in looking for the estate planning session, so apparently that was a very popular one. But glad we're going, getting some engagement from the community and seeing those people in again. It's great.
I saw a narwhal on Facebook. That made me happy, thank you. Yay, summer reading.
All right, with that, anybody else? All right, moving on to Friends of the Library with the report for Shanta.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for this time today to highlight recent news and accomplishments on behalf of the Friends of Johnson County Library. Just have a couple of items to discuss. I could talk about 990 or charitable organization registration, but you don't want to hear about any of that stuff. That's boring. To start, as you may well know, the Employee Retention Tax Credit, also known as ERTC, was created as part of the CARES Act in the to encourage businesses to keep employees on payroll. In early 2020, during the Great Pause, Friends leadership made the choice to continue paying our staff, as we knew we would need change and we would need everyone in place to support and guide us once we jumped back into operations and learned how to operate in a suddenly changed world. And this decision has paid off in so many ways for us. One in the form of refunded tax payments exceeding $20,000, which we received those checks just a couple of weeks ago, yay. And we celebrate the receipt of this funding. We also note that this most likely concludes CARES Act relief. I know there's some legislation to push through for, I believe, 2021, but if it happens, great. If not, we'll keep working. Peek behind the scenes. For those of you who have not visited our Lenexa headquarters, it is easy to overlook the scope of our operation. To give you a sense of the work we've accomplished this year, we rely on more than 60 volunteers currently who work at least 1 hour, 3 shifts a week to sort ex-library materials and donated items. And just for a sense of the scope of that, in the first quarter of 2022, these devoted individuals processed approximately 100,315 books and audiovisual items. And just for some sense, if the numbers don't quite work for you, think for a moment the last time you packed up a box of books, perhaps for donation to us. Now think of unpacking that box and checking each book for condition, nearly 3,350 items over. This is only one step in the process carried out 6 days a week at our sorting center. And while the volunteers have so much fun, make no mistake, it is work. Boxes of books are super heavy. If you love the idea of supporting us in this way, I know not everyone here is eligible to volunteer, but if you are, we welcome you to visit friendsofjcl.org/page/volunteer and fill up the form at the bottom of that page. Even though we have more than 60 folks currently serving with us, we have open availability, especially on Fridays, so just throwing that out there. If you cannot join us in person, consider joining us as a member at joinjclfriends.org. So I just thank you again for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Great. Thank you.
I had the pleasure of going and visiting and getting a tour, and it is amazing. It's a well-oiled machine, and there's just everybody working and having fun. And highly recommend if you go, because your pop-up sale is this Saturday, correct? So. All right, next is Stephanie from the foundation, and with some exciting news as always.
Well, it's a fun day today. I'll build up. I got 3 things to mention. The first 2 are good, and the third thing is super fun. So I'm Stephanie Stolzheimer. I'm delighted to report on behalf of the foundation. First, I want to just mention Library Lets Loose. The planning is in full swing. Since it's June, we are in a full court press to get this fundraiser really rocking and rolling. It is September 17th in person here at the Central Resource Library. I want to give a little shout out to our 24 community volunteers who work on this event. Some of them are in this room, and we just have remarkable leadership to make this event happen. I just want to mention Ava Christie, who is our board president, and Julie Steiner, who is the chairperson of the organizing committee. The next thing I want to recognize are a couple of grants that we received. We're always thrilled and grateful for these dedicated community funders who give financial support. Thank you, Tricia. Who give financial support to these impactful library programs. One of them is Henderson Engineers. They made a $3,000 donation for Elementia, the teen literary program. And Village Presbyterian Church granted $4,000 for incarcerated services, the library program that works with the Adult Residential Center within the Johnson County Department of Corrections. So we keep benefiting from all of the community that wants to help the library. And all right, so finally, this is going to take a minute because we want to take a photo, if everybody's okay with that, on the board and from the foundation board. The foundation's happy to present the library with a check today. We have 5 foundation board members here: Ann Blessing, Leanne Neal, Chuck Sipple, Mark Berdowski, and Bonnie Limbird. Will you raise your hands and say hello? These are foundation board members who came to officially present the check for the designated funds for the collection. It's based on a calculation on the investments that are at the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation. This year, it's the largest amount to date. It's $126,194. So, yay! So we're going to ask for a real quick interlude. If you from the board and Sean and Tricia and our 5 board members could just run out to Steph New. She's standing there waving her hand, and we'll do just a photo op, and then we can share with the world this really cool endeavor. Thank you. Thank you. We don't do this every time, Jeffrey, to have a photo op. It's just this time. I really don't have anything else. Thank you very, very much. Look at poor Fred. He's just alone. He's in charge.
So, Chairman, if I could, I've just got a text from the commissioner who is in the middle of a budget hearing at this point and expresses her apologies for not being able to be here. It's just running long, and we were down there on this morning, and they had just a very full agenda. So I want to express that thoughts, and she will be here at the next board meeting. And then on behalf of the library board and library staff, I want to thank the foundation for their generous gift. Again, it's just amazing each year. The amount goes up. They're dedicated people who volunteer and give their time. And this money goes towards books and the collection and our programming, and is really activated in a wonderful way. And I'm deeply appreciative of all the work and time and effort that they give to the community.
Good, thank you. I think we all agree on that. All right, next is Fred, your report.
We were asked to report on our review of contracts. The Johns County Library, as a governing body of a separate taxing district, has the legal authority to enter into contracts, and it does so. It does so either under the name of the Johns County Library or the Board of Directors of the Johns County Library. In the case of contracts of less than $100,000, those are contracts that the county librarian may enter into on behalf of the library. That follows along with county policy. As you know, we follow county policy with respect to purchases and contracting, and so that $100,000 limit is in county policy, and therefore we follow that. So if it's a contract of less than $100,000, then that's something that the county librarian is going to review, approve, and execute. On contracts of more than $100,000, those come before the library board. And we review all contracts. We are asked, just so all of you know, we are asked by staff to review every contract that comes along. We do that both as to form, the language in the contract, and then also, and we'll provide any comments, any needed changes, but then we also provide a certification when it is in final form that it is ready for approval by the library board or the county librarian, either way. So there is a written record of our review in which we do that, which we propose any changes, and then where we approve it as to form and certify that it's ready for execution either by the county librarian or by the library board. And so I think that's it. It really is just that simple. It's just that basic. That's how we handle contract review. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Nope, Sean, you're up for your last one.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I want to just also kind of piggyback a little on Fred. You know, it is a tremendous amount of contracts that we enter into, and the vast majority are under the $100,000 limit. The thoroughness that we have is that we don't get into contract disputes. In the 10 years that I've been here, I don't think there's one contract dispute. And again, it's both setting expectations for the services provided and then how we are going to then pay for those services. And that, again, is due to a large fact for the work that Fred does. It's detailed work, and it just happens again and again and again, whether it's a speaker that's coming or a program or anything that is a legal transaction, including the MOUs that we have with outside organizations. So at the end of the year, we do a MOU or Memorandum of Understanding renewal, and Fred, along with the administrative team, review all those each year, provide any updates and changes, and then we do that. And it's just, again, just a way to set expectations, and it's just a way that we work going forward. So at this time, I'd like to invite Dave Ratney to come up and give us the financial report.
Thanks, Sean. Good afternoon, Board. I'm going to direct you to page 9 of your report. Should be the Johnson County total revenue report as of April 2022. We're approximately 33% of the year, 33% of the way through the year. As of the end of April, we collected a little over $23.8 million, which is around 54%, and is, from a percentage standpoint, on target to where we were this time last year. Total expenses, which include the collections encumbrances to date, ends up being a little under $18.6 million, or about 42%. While that seems high, given that we're only 33% of the way through the year, when I factor out the collections encumbrances and the interfund transfers, that readjusted number ends up being more like 31%. So I think we're staying under and within the parameters of where I'd think we would be at this point in time for the year. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Hey, Dave, I just have a question based off of last month's meeting. Have you made any progress with getting those salaries breakdown?
So I think there was something maybe put out in the portal that would have had the state report that had the hourly rates for all of our staff. And so if there's multiple positions in that, it would be a range from the lowest to the highest.
Okay.
I don't know if you'd had a chance to,
No, I'll
see that.
I'll take a look at that and
Okay.
we'll address that next
Sure.
time. Thanks.
Have we made our budget presentation to the BOCC yet?
We have. In fact, that's on the list a little bit later in here for me to talk about. So
Well, then I wait with bated breath to see how it went.
it's riveting.
Woo.
Thank you.
Great questions. And Jeffrey, if you needed more detail, just let us know. If that report that we've posted on the portal doesn't give you the data you're required, we'll work to get it in the format that you want.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite Adam Wathen to come up and give our statistical report for this month.
Okay, I am Adam Wathen. I'm the Associate Director for System-Wide Services here at the library. And I'm presenting the monthly statistical report. And this month, we're only giving you the general statistics. We're preparing branch statistics for next month, and that will include some of the things that you've asked about, which are meeting room use, for instance. And I'll look forward to giving that to you. So you'll see that our physical circulation trend and digital usage trend continue to pace with previous years. I think we had an anomaly in 2021 in terms of physical use in April. And you can see that 2022 number paces with pre-COVID 2019 numbers for physical usage. On our digital usage, we actually shut down our ebooks product in April, and we didn't have any new holds able to be placed, and so I think that harmed our digital usage numbers. However, we launched Libby, which is our new ebook platform, and we're seeing great use out of that, and so I look forward to giving you new numbers based on that in the future. So that is a little bit why that line is a little flatter. I think it was a little earlier than that even. Yeah, maybe the last week of May. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, it was the full week for the last week of May. So, yay. And on the next page, you'll see our visitation. And so our visitation is also pacing up from previous years, but we still have not caught up to pre-COVID levels. So any questions on those numbers for me?
Adam, and those digital usage trends, that includes like on the browser, like if I'm on my computer using like the e-newspaper as well as the apps like Libby?
Absolutely. Our e-resources librarian collects usage statistics from all of our digital products. And so these are all paid products where you can have them as a single-use product. So the e-newspapers, e-magazines, the databases, and e-books, e-audio books. We have a lot of products that way. It does not include things like web page hits or our internal resources like a reading list that we might post ourselves or a blog that we might have on the web page.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Next, I invite Scott Syme to come and give us our comprehensive library master plan update. And just before that, the one comment is we're still seeing kind of a slow return back to pre-pandemic levels as far as foot traffic. I think that's pretty common through restaurants, museums. It's just going to take a while for the public to come back, though I am very encouraged by the amount of traffic we're seeing with the summertime and the summer reading program. We're really seeing an influx of people in our buildings. Scott?
Sean, can I have a question real quick? If somebody's picking up a hold, say through the drive-through, that's not considered a visit to the library, right? Or is it?
I believe it's not, because we use the door count checkers, but I could be wrong. Am I okay, it may be incorporated. Well, we can get an answer for you next month.
I was just curious if, I think a lot of people started using holds that maybe didn't before and aren't coming in as frequently because they're just picking up.
That's okay. Good afternoon, everybody. First, I'm Scott Syme, Project Coordinator for the library. And first, I'll jump into the Antioch Library Replacement Project. Let's see. We have Dan McGinn from Dake Wells who will give us a design update. And before I have him come up, I'll just kind of go through some other updates about the project. So next slide, please. So a few things that we're working on are our property conveyance addendum number 2. We anticipate bringing that back to the library board next month for action. We are working with the city of Merriam to get the final development plan to their planning commission for approval. Similar timeline there. And then it'll be on with property transfer and bond sale. One thing that I didn't mention that's on our slide there is naming, so I wanted to give you guys a little bit of context on naming buildings. It's the role of the library board to name our buildings. We've asked, for this one, we've asked the library's local history committee to generate historically and culturally significant options. We've consulted with the library's administrative team and the city of Merriam's professional staff to create a short list of options. And then in the packet tonight, there's an informational item that talks about the 2 names for discussion. Sean will present that info a little bit later on in the meeting. Next slide. This is a look at our project timeline. We're still on track. We're at the red arrow there. We're in the middle of design. And at this point, I'm happy to turn it over to Dan McGinn to give us a design update.
Afternoon, board. Let's see, the last few times I've visited, I've given you an update on what I've been reading. So David Foster Wallace, supposedly fun thing I'll never do again. And then my guilty pleasure is still Dean Koontz with Jane Hawk series, which I'm reading on Libby, by the way. So yeah, it's really great to come back and be able to give you an update on progress on the library. So we'll go ahead and dive in with the next slide. Here's the site plan, and we've worked really hard to make sure the library is its own special place on the campus, but that it also integrates with the existing buildings and landscape. So starting kind of on the right hand of the slide and moving left, we're tying into the existing exterior community spaces with some nice landscaped areas. You can kind of see a couple hockey stick shaped seating walls that kind of create an entrance zone and a nice connection between the community center and the library. And then the entrance, where it says entry, is conveniently located so that it's accessible and very noticeable from the stair tower or the community center or from the drop-off. So one main feature is the front porch, which I think you've all seen in previous iterations, which stretches across the whole building and kind of overlooks the entrance area and the community center courtyard. And so really to the right of the slide, a lot of areas to really welcome you into the library and encourage you to come in and check it out. And on the other side, the drive-through area, we've kind of seen as never being kind of a back of the house area for us. That experience we still see as a primary experience, and that it should be a really great experience when you're in your car. So just like the front kind of reaches out, the back reaches out to be able to protect and welcome people in their cars. And then just a quick landscape highlight, a single zone of mowable turf grass to the west. Otherwise, the plantings have been picked to kind of keep people off and kind of discourage a lot of pedestrian traffic where there's cars. Next slide. Obviously, this is a plan of the green roof showing kind of different zones of plantings that we're still working on. Obviously, an important feature of the library in our minds, it kind of completes the site. The white shapes are the light monitors that kind of bump up through the green roof and bring light into the library. Then the next slide. Working with Confluence, the landscape architect, and we're in the midst of developing a diverse plant mix for the site. We love how their design kind of uses plants for beauty, but also to communicate what areas are okay to walk on and what are not. Also working really closely with facilities and our civil engineer to make sure that all sight lines are maintained. It's really important, not just during summer seasons, but all seasons. Next slide. We're also working on the mix of plants for the green roof, but again, the goal is a mix of diverse plants that are constantly changing season to season, month to month, providing a lot of visual interest as the months pass. We're looking at mostly native grasses on the roof, about 70 to 80% of those grasses. Variety of heights on those, anywhere from 2 to 3 feet. We could even get a little bit taller. But the idea is that it looks tidy, but that there is some play of the wind and that it kind of has that sense of that almost like a meadow has been raised up and you're experiencing that way. We're also paying attention to species that allow for some birds and butterflies to come visit, and I think it would be really great if we could figure out a way to tell that story of the ecosystem of the site inside the library when it's all said and done. This slide mentions LEED, and just wanted to also communicate we're still tracking LEED Silver. That's a hugely important part of this project for us, and we're taking that very seriously. And the green roof really helps out in that effort. It contributes to quite a few credits. Next slide, the plan. Been really working closely with system-wide managers to get the layout right, still tracking on our square footage, and really have been able to create a very efficient layout thanks to all this great feedback we've gotten. We almost think of the experience of the library as it's almost like chapters in a book or a collection of stories within a book of short stories, a lot of different experiences, and we really want the library to feel like it's the place to be, whether or not you're an adult, an older adult, a kid, a teen, and whether or not you have a personality where you're coming to connect with other people or you're just looking for a kind of a place to be by yourself. So thinking of that as like a collection of experiences, not just walls and a ceiling. Next slide. The rendering looking south, and you can see how the front porch as a gesture is really intended to kind of welcome you in. You can see in this image how the library is really, it's trying to reach out. So the front porch is reaching out, the drive-through is reaching out, there's 5 bump ups that are reaching out, and then the niches on either side are also kind of reaching out in their own way on the side. So one of our unwritten goals from the start was that the library kind of be an expression of curiosity. We think on a subtle level, all of these elements that are kind of like reaching out in a way and kind of trying to welcome you in and create exterior experiences that are interesting sculpturally, but interior experiences that are just really engaging in different ways, that kind of expresses that sense of curiosity that we think makes sense for a library.
Out of curiosity, will it say Johnson County Library or will it have the new library's name?
Currently, this is what we've been working a lot on the signage, and currently this is what we were thinking would be on the library, would be branding it with the Johnson County Library name. And I don't know if there's any updates to that. That's one of the things we'll really be drilling down on during construction documents, is making sure we get the signage right and that it's tied into the campus so that it all feels cohesive, but you also know exactly where the library is. Then once you're inside, that you know where to go for the various elements of the library. Let's see. So that's looking south. The next image, Again, another image kind of looking sort of from the drop-off area, kind of raised up a little bit. All of the bump ups, because they're facing different solar orientations, we have ways of making sure that the light inside is glare-free. And again, from the start, we've been thinking that as the light changes throughout the day, that kind of changes the nature of the natural light inside the library, which kind of adds to that experience, and it's kind of tied into placemaking, that it's really a place that could really only exist on this site. The drive-through, which again is kind of a vehicular cousin to the pedestrian side. Again, trying to really make it clear where to come in and make sure that that experience of driving through to get your book is something that you look forward to doing, and that is very efficient. We're also exploring different options on where that sign is. Next slide. Is that? So we haven't really totally squared that up yet, but we'll keep looking into that. We're also, this is a design that we're exploring in virtual reality. So we've had various members of staff actually experience it, and I think they can attest, you feel like you're there when you have the goggles on, and that's really helped us as the design team make design choices and decisions throughout and really get a sense of what it's going to be like. And we'll have a virtual reality station at the upcoming event in September. Yeah. So you'll be able to put on the goggles and see what it would be like. Slide. Kind of from the community center, looking at those kind of hockey stick shaped walls that are kind of meant to be that you could walk right past there, or sit and hang out and wait for a friend, and even strike up a conversation across the way. Next slide. Just kind of talking about the material palette. The exterior hasn't really changed much since schematic design. Heat-treated wood exterior, which is really a long-lasting natural material that still gives that nice warm feeling to the library. We also consider the landscape to be an exterior material, part of the palette, along with a little exposed concrete, and then the soffits have the same kind of wood, but a natural finish. And then that natural finish takes you to the interior, wood ceiling. So that idea of connecting exterior and interior is really an important part of the design. The interior palette, the next slide. Carpet, again, like views to all the landscape materials. We see books as a huge part of the interior palette. A little bit of exposed concrete, again, with the columns. And then a really strong feature that has been with the project almost from the start and was reinforced when we met with the community and showed them various images of other libraries, was this idea of a warm wood ceiling. I think the next two shots are interior, kind of showing what that wood ceiling could be like and how the different, have the sort of what we're calling bump ups sort of captured various orientations of light. So this is kind of as you come in near the front door, you can see the service desk. Where those two people are standing to the left, there's actually some soft seating there. We're really working on making sure that it's very clear where the holds are, where returns are, where the restrooms are, and again, intuitively convenient, and getting the signage and wayfinding right was part of our, part of our charge from admin that we've taken very seriously. The rendering, you can kind of see the community center through that far wall. This is the light monitor or bump up that's kind of in the center of the space, and it captures light. It's a little, all the monitors are a little different depending on what's happening underneath them. This one is actually capturing light from two directions, and you can kind of see that the soil that for the green roof actually is of a depth that we can grow these grasses that are 2 to 3 feet. You'd actually see those peeking up over the bottom of the glass, and actually as they capture the breeze, that really we think would create a great experience that again is warm and engaging and ties you to nature without being too distracting. I think that's the last slide of the presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you all have. We're very excited about working on it and continuing on the project throughout.
Is the patio accessible from within the building, or is that just an exterior kind of seating area?
The
on the back, there's kind of a, is it,
That's the staff entry.
but that's a staff area
Right.
then? And the kind of, this corner up here
Yeah,
on the slide.
that's the main way that the staff gets
Okay.
into the space. It's kind of thought of as like, it's an area for figure out a use in the future once we really know what's working with the library.
Okay, so the thing that's labeled on, I think it's page 21 of our report, where you've got transformer patio, that's actually a staff entrance.
Yeah, if we could go back to the plan, so just make sure yeah, transformer patio, that's the staff directly connecting to their own, that the break room's right there and the lockers and,
Okay.
yeah.
Will that be gated, or will that just be kind of an open area with only the access into the building?
We're still,
where the security barrier
finalizing
is.
that, but we think it makes sense that it has a gate and it's very clear that this is staff only.
Okay.
Card access.
Alrighty.
I think it's a beautiful design. I think it's a beautiful building, and I'm really excited for it. The exposed concrete, is there a design reason that I'm missing as to why we would want to do that when we have such a beautiful ceiling that we're planning?
Well, there's just a little bit of concrete, and we love the fact that it's, I don't know, we would say that it's kind of a beautiful material when it's done really precisely and well, and we're trying to make the columns as skinny as possible, so that it's not going to feel like chunky parking lot columns. And we would be able to specify a mix of concrete that is, it's called an architectural rubbed finish, where it just,
Smooth.
it almost comes across as concrete raised to a higher level, but it's still kind of a straightforward kind of expression of the structure that's holding it up.
Okay. And then I know the exterior is still being planned out. I think the great idea with all the plants and trees that we're looking at right now. Is there gonna be a space for to lock up your bikes? I didn't see that in the plans. But
Yeah, we'll have bike racks,
Okay.
and the community center also has bike racks. So
Right,
there's a lot of
across.
talk between facilities and community center to make sure that everything feels integrated, like it's all part of one campus.
Nice.
We'll make sure that bike riders are encouraged to come and that their bike feels safe. And
Thank you.
Do we have some of these drawings on the website, or is it too early? You know, Scott?
We do have a few of them on the website, and then as they get more refined and as those drawings get more refined and we start to kind of tick through the approval process, then we'll be able to share more of those with the public. We are working with the Merriam Community Center to get the 3D model that we showed you guys maybe a few months back, and then also some of those renderings posted in, both in the community center and then over at the current Antioch Library.
Thanks,
great.
Dan.
thank you.
Scott, do you want to move forward and give us an update on the Desoto, Spring Hill, and Edgerton renewal study?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so last time we met, I had a request for a little bit more detail on public input and findings. So I may have done a little bit of overkill and provided lots of detail in your packet, but it's there, and there's a little bit more that we can upload to the portal later if desired. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of run through that here. I don't know how, if you want me to go in more detail than I'm going, I'm happy to. I'm gonna try to skim it, just so that I'm not up here for 20 or 30 minutes. Okay, so let's see. This is what's included in the update. We've got what was in the original request for the study. We have the findings that we got from public and staff engagement. Though that kind of turned into what the admin priorities were for these three buildings. I have a new concept that I want to just talk about briefly, which is unstaffed access, and then I'll go in through next steps. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the background for that study the library board approved way back in November of 18. And I think, so at this point, it was Desoto and Spring Hill. We added Edgerton to the scope later on. And what we were really looking for was a cosmetic refresh, as well as innovative ways to expand hours and services. Next slide. So we worked with our consultant, Clark and Anderson, to gather information from the public and staff. We did online and paper surveys. We also had a live virtual listening session for all three of those branches. And the high-level trends, this is the bit that I presented, I think, in April, was that we heard a desire for a wider range of hours. We heard a desire to keep access to popular collections and being able to place holds and browse. Also collaborative and quiet study spaces, and then the public was showing appreciation for our friendly staff at those locations. Next slide. Okay, so here we have some branch visit data. This is for these three locations. I took 2019 as kind of the last normal year, and then 2021 where we were at for that year. So those are the usage, public visitation data that you see there. Desoto's blue, Spring Hill is orange, and Edgerton is in gray. Next slide. Here's a little bit of population information. This is from Ames. So up at the top, you'll see the 2010 number for each one of those cities, and then 2019, and if there was a growth or a decline. And then down at the bottom under age, that's just the age breakdowns for those communities. Slide. So one of the things we asked in our survey was when do you use the library and when would you like to use the library? So the when do you use is in yellow, and the when would you like to use is in blue. And most of the two highlighted in green there are the ones that had the most, those are locations where we're closed, or days when we're closed. So those were the ones that had the most desire for more hours on those days that we were closed. And that trend was pretty similar in all three of those locations. Okay, next slide. So this is DeSoto, this one's Spring Hill. And again, those big differences were when patrons expressed a desire to use the library when they're closed. Next slide. And then this one's Edgerton. Okay, next slide. We also asked the community what their favorite things were about those locations. So this is a representation of that, how they responded. A lot of similarities between those. And then next is what would you change, which I think is valuable to understand too. Pause for a second there. So we kind of took this, what do you like, what would you change? And then next slide. When we were developing the Antioch design, the admin team, the core team for the project, which includes our facilities partners and our system-wide managers, came up with this list of 15 general building priorities for the buildings. So these are the things we felt were the most important to include in our buildings. On this slide, they're not in any order. We'll get to that on the next few. Okay, DeSoto, this is how that prioritization fell out. And to me, it's real helpful for us to all know kind of what our top priorities are, so that if we run into a situation where we can't get to all of them, we know which ones we're all kind of on the same page with not doing or doing less of. So DeSoto and then Spring Hill and Edgerton, those priorities are on there. Okay, next, there we go. And then, next slide. This unstaffed access concept. So we heard a consistent desire for a wider range of hours at these locations, and there are a couple of ways that we can do that. One is to add more staff, and another one is a different service model. So we are interested in exploring more about what that different service model is and how to do that. And a benefit to that is that it keeps staffing levels constant at those locations. We have a team that will be working on what that framework needs to look like, as well as best practices. It includes things like physical network security and customer experience considerations. So this would be a situation where the library would continue to have regular hours, And then if patrons wanted to, they could get, the way I'm thinking of it in my head at least, is they would be able to get a card similar to Lenexa's Holds lobby and then be able to access the building before and after there was a kind of regular hours, if you want to think of it that way. So that's new to us. There's some things we need to figure out. We have a desire to keep that welcoming atmosphere even when staff aren't in the building. And then the plan right now, at least, is to be able to pilot at one of those 3 locations. Next slide. I should pause there for a minute and catch my breath. Are there any questions so far? That's a lot of data to throw at you guys.
Well, in the Holds lobby at the Lenexa City Center, so is there somehow something that closes so they can't access the rest of it, that you can't see during?
Right, yeah, so there's a
Open hours.
coiling, kind of like a garage door up on the top level. And it, when it's unstaffed, that garage door is closed so that you can't get further back into the library. And if you are interested in being able to come and pick up your holds after hours, you sign up for this special pass. You can badge in and the door will open, you can go get your holds, check it out, and then go. Similar concept, not as expansive as what we're talking about for these 3 buildings.
Okay, thanks.
I got a question. So they want more hours. Are they wanting more hours to pick up books, or are they wanting more hours for meeting space and stuff? Because that was in there as well. 'Cause obviously, that's not going to solve that aspect of it.
So yeah, I think that it's probably both. So I use the Lenexa example knowing that it's not a perfect example of what we're thinking for this kind of new service model. What we're talking about, at least so far, is that patrons will be able to access the whole or most of the library, including meeting rooms, computers, being able to print stuff out. Yeah. Is that?
And
I'm not-
you're basing that off of what? You say you think, what are you basing that off of?
Yeah, so this is what we heard from the public is that they want to be able to use the library more and to be able to do these things.
But the survey didn't break it down into what the chairman's asking, right?
It didn't break it down into what services do you want to use when.
Okay.
That's true. Yep.
Thanks.
Are other libraries doing something similar across the country that we've talked to that maybe have lessons learned, or it's worked or hasn't worked?
Yeah, so there's a library in Colorado, Jefferson County, that does something similar, where they have a small branch that you can do some of these services in they call it a ghost library, where it's unstaffed, kind of a.
I'll take some of that as well, Scott, is this project, part of this idea, started in 18 after I went to ALA and sat in on a conference on kind of how to use technology to expand library services, and there were a couple of examples. There's somewhere in a township in Michigan that actually has an Amway factory, and Amway reached out to the library to see if they could have a 24-hour library system because the factory was close to the library. And so since the whole town now operates on a 24-hour kind of timetable because of this factory, they expanded all of the city's services to be 24 hours. But obviously there are some fairly significant budgetary constraints to keeping a library open 24 hours. And so this was in partnership with, I don't know if it was Cersei or somebody who does library cards. It was partnership with the technology company that does library cards and all of that stuff. And as we had discussed this several years ago, it was, well, you know, if 24-Hour Fitness can do this without spending, you know, $500 million on it, we probably could figure out something that works for our community. And so as we were discussing how to bring more hours and more services, the inception of this was to look at our rural libraries that have a smaller population but still deserve this full-time services. But when you're doing a cost-benefit analysis and you're in the weeds budgetarily, this is not necessarily the best way to do that. So maybe here is where technology could help us expand services into these communities without adding hundreds of thousands of dollars to our budgetary kind of constraints. And so we're now, 5-6 years? We're a long time into this conversation. And so I'm really excited to start to see how to do that, is that this is another way for us to be innovative. And so it was the conversation was born here and not from a public survey, but from this board wants to see all of our services expanded in a way that gives all of our community the most bang for their buck. And if we can start a study in Edgerton or Spring Hill, then maybe within a few years, we're looking at access to all of our libraries on the taxpayer's timeframe and not our schedule alone. And so that's where we're starting from.
Thank you so much for giving us that background. And I think that just further brings up the question that was just asked, right? So if that technology piece isn't solved by us having that, well, technology is not going to help us solve the fact that somebody wants a place where they can go study, where they can go use a computer, where they can find a quiet space to read a book, right? Because if that was the case, we have like the Libby app where you can just read the book at home. So perhaps to the extent that people are saying they want more hours in the library, and I think as a board in general, we would like to have more hours. We're talking about space. People want a space where they can be a safe space for some. Some people have, maybe they don't have a housing situation where they want to stay home and read a book and they want to come to the library, they want a safe space. Or maybe they don't have a computer at home, they want to come to the library to use that computer. And while I may be well-intentioned, I don't necessarily know that spending our time in replicating whatever's going on in Lenexa, and I'm gonna have to go visit the Lenexa space and see what they're doing with that hold lobby. But I don't necessarily know that solves our issue.
I think there's a confusion. So let me provide more context. So the hold lobby was our first kind of test to see if people would use this in non-traditional hours. And the reason we thought we would try it there is because of the gym or the exercise area that opened at 5:30 in the morning. So what we did with the technology was, is it possible for us to then kind of add a chip like you would on the a 24-hour gym to a library card, and would people be willing to have that, sign up for that kind of access? And then also, would we experience any kind of theft of books or people abusing it? What we found is that people do use it, they sign up for the service, and for convenience, one of our strategic goals, people find it convenient after they've finished exercising in the morning, or if they're exercising later in the evening, to go and pick up their holders. That was the first kind of prototype. The end goal was to be able to extend hours for full library service without a librarian. And that means installing camera systems and some form of security for you to gain access. And that means that you could book rooms, you would have access to the collection through self-checkout, you'd have access to Wi-Fi and the computing systems with the library. But it does mean that you would have to register for that, and we would give you an RFID kind of pin that would be attached to your library card or another card if you wanted, and that would gain you access. But then we record who's coming in, and that the cameras were able to do identification. That allows, just through meeting with chambers and various other groups in these small communities, for people to do book clubs and to fully utilize what is a taxpayer resource. So you could have a meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning if you were doing a Bible study or a book club or a neighborhood association meeting. You could use the library as a resource. In theory, you could use it 24 hours a day. You may want to start and have, from 6 or 5 in the morning through till 11 o'clock at night. What is the advantage that we have here in Johnson County is with the rural communities, they're small, people know each other, and have said, and those meeting rooms and meeting spaces aren't readily available. So the goal is to extend hours without putting the burden of the most expensive thing, which is our staff. 50% of our cost is staffing. So the goal was, how do we provide this resource in a way that's safe, secure for the resources that were within this building, but also continue the mission of the library, and what these communities want is access. So if you're a dad and your kids haven't done their homework and it's Sunday night, and I'm not saying that anyone here has children that's done that, But if you needed to print something off, the homework off, in theory, in the not in the near future, you should be able to go to one of these libraries in your community and with your thumb drive and print off your kid's paper or do any type of research that you wanted to do, including scanning the shelves and checking out a book. And I think that's, I think if I was a parent or someone in that community, that would be a big win for me. So that's the kind of more information for you, if that's helpful.
Thanks, Sean. That is super helpful. And to the extent that that is the direction, then I'm on board for that for sure.
I would just.
Wait,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
Thought you were changing something.
No.
I just want to say, from the Desoto standpoint, you know, I filled out my survey and I have pretty good knowledge of the Desoto Library. There have been times in my life where I've spent a lot of time there. And this going back to that question of the do use and would use. And when I used to go to the library on a regular basis with my kids, one of the things I did see was after-school usage at Desoto. And the fact that Monday is completely closed, and that's a big problem. And so it goes back to that question of what is it that the patrons, when they say they would use, what is it that they're trying to use? And just having a holds area or a ghost meeting space may not truly be what they're trying to achieve. And I'm guessing Spring Hill is very similar, just with its location in town and the people that I've seen when I've been in the Spring Hill Library. So I think that this might be an issue that deserves a little bit more digging into.
Okay.
Yeah, I would, especially on the Monday, in terms of what the actual usage on a Saturday afternoon versus a Monday afternoon, because if this really is just about how we're dividing our hours, then if that particular library were open, you know, from 2 to 6 or whatever, if we're going to split our hours and our staff time, that limited Saturday to open, if we can't just open on Monday, would be in the community's best interest as well, because as much as I'm an advocate for having the library open, I'm not entirely sure if having kids have access unattended on a Monday afternoon is the best stewardship of our resources. And so that would be something in terms of the community to look for. If what they really want there is just, they want their library open on Monday as well, would be certainly worth looking into.
So I think these are really great. I'll just, because we're a relatively new board, and Mitra might remember this, and I can't remember if you were on the board, we did do a comprehensive study of library hours usage. We can definitely take a look at that again. It's what drove us to, we used to open at 10 o'clock and stay open in the morning and stay open until 9 o'clock at night. But the data at that point then said, no, we think we're going to see increased usage if we open an hour earlier and close an hour earlier. That data also kind of pointed us to the hours that we have today. Whether that's true.
How long ago was that?
2015.
Actually, I don't think we did it with DeSoto. We were specifically looking at Leawood Library at the time. And at the time, it's the reason that we changed it to allow Sunday hours. And we, based on the usage, we changed Leawood Pioneer to be open on Sundays as opposed to staying later on certain, it was like Friday night. So we swapped the Friday night and changed it to Sunday.
You're absolutely correct.
7 years ago then?
Then there was
more than that.
there was a secondary study that we did that changed all library hours to 9 rather than 10. So that you're absolutely right. There was a Leawood study looking for the Sunday hours, and there was a change done on those, and then there was a follow-up study, and I can't remember whether you were on the board then. We can share that study, and I think it was done at all locations, and we can do another study.
I think I would like to see another study that's
Yeah.
less than a decade old. I mean,
Well, this is less than, I think it was 2015. Why don't we put this on, which is close to a decade, I don't mean splitting hairs. I think we're saying, well, we want the same outcome. We want the libraries open at the time that best suits the community. And if it's time to do another time study on that,
Yeah, totally separate to the
I
Edgerton
fully
stuff, yeah.
support that work being done.
Well, but also with this rural initiative that we're taking on, I think, and Jeffrey really pinpointed it, I think it's delving down into when we say we want extended usage of the library, what does that really mean? I'm guessing in these rural communities, it doesn't necessarily mean meeting space at 6 a.m. So that may be something that we want to delve a little bit more into as we're taking this plan forward.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback on what you just said, which is the meeting space, if it's after hours and there's no librarian there. I mean, it's one of those things where I think a two-person meeting is going to be different than if they want a big meeting room that needs, 10 or 12. If it's two, you can kind of find a quiet space in the evening. For 12 people or 15 or 20, that's a little bit different. I think those are two separate issues that probably we're thinking about, and I don't know if there's the space to be able to do that without building a whole new library is my guess, but just some thoughts.
These are great thoughts, and I think, maybe time to do a time study again. And again, we can come back and ask the community clarifying questions and dig deeper on specific areas to get that.
Yeah, I think for maybe time, let's maybe move on. I don't think we're going to solve it today. I think we've had a lot of great thoughts and enough to go on. And Sean, I think just probably authorize so much more now that he's probably open to authorizing more right now than he is in the past.
Yeah, any other work you want to pile on me, Troy, my answer is yes. Let's do it.
Maybe we shouldn't allow that, but no, just kidding.
Give me the microphone. Thank you, Scott.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions on this before we move on to cybersecurity?
No, thank you, Scott, for kind of spearheading this, that I think that this is very much at the inception of this where we wanted to go. And so I think we are very much on the right track. I think that to some extent, we just kind of found something that maybe system-wide we need to look at in the course of this investigation. But I think that this study is very much what we were looking for so that we can start taking the next steps to start doing these things. And so I am very, very excited about where this is heading, and obviously also towards making sure that our libraries are what our community need them to be in terms of availability. So that's kind of another little, sticky note to add to the to-do list. So yay. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Michelle, if you would like to come up and give the cybersecurity. As I'm seeing, again, Scott, I know I cut you kind of short. Scott also had the timelines, but again, they're in your packet and kind of give you an update of where we're at today. Michelle?
Hi there. My name's Michelle Beasley. I'm the IT manager here at Johnson County Library. And this brief presentation, was prepared by myself and our new security analyst, John Sisloff, and he's not able to join us today. So I want to thank him for his work. Hopefully you'll be able to meet him soon. Our goals today are to fulfill this request from Sean that we just spend a little bit of time talking about cybersecurity, really information sharing, kind of focusing on cybersecurity risk at a high level, and reviewing the library's current cybersecurity initiatives. Okay, so this is a reminder why I'm here, that cybersecurity is a specific tactic under Goal 8 of our strategic plan, important goal. Next slide. So we last discussed cybersecurity in November 2021. And at that time, we talked about these 5 cyber defenders. Next slide. Don't want to spend too much time on the review part. And the first one is anticipation, which is related to cybersecurity risk. And you can see the definition here that we reviewed in November, emphasizing cybersecurity from a proactive standpoint and focusing on preparedness. Slide. So John and the IT team and myself have studied national standards, guidelines, and best practices to manage cybersecurity risk. We've adapted multiple cybersecurity frameworks to customize it for JCL. It's kind of where we are today. And we did that in order to prioritize the library's priorities, which are protecting patron information, protecting staff and county information, and protecting library assets. So a framework specifically allows us to review library risk as compared to standards. And then we measure and prioritize which items to address, in which order, with what staff, resources, and funds, right? There are always trade-offs between cybersecurity and organizational goals and efficiency. The framework is applied and specific risks are identified. And then there are 5 possible options. See them listed here: avoid, ignore, transfer, mitigate, or accept. So the risks are reviewed and an option is selected by working with our stakeholders. This involves prioritizing and understanding the costs, along with the impact on efficient provision of patron services. Okay. So this is the fun part. So Sean asked that I review with you some of our current initiatives in this area of cybersecurity, kind of based on the work that I've described. My favorite one is we've added resources. This is great. We've hired our new security analyst, John Sisloff, I mentioned, and he started in March. It's really brought a lot to the team already and hit the ground running. And we have also really continued our work with our ongoing security awareness training for staff. So I want to recognize our learning and development team here. They spend a lot of effort, consistent effort, making sure that this touches every staff person frequently, quite frequently. And employees are really our best defense against cyber attacks. We're following best practices in managing technology overall. So software patching and updates is important, and best practices for asset maintenance. So replacing hardware before it becomes outdated and a risk. That's a big priority for us. We coordinate. The library regularly coordinates with county IT groups, area nonprofits with similar interests, vendors, and law enforcement as well. These are all important partners for us in cybersecurity. We also work with our physical security specialists to ensure the physical protection of library assets. It's a big part of it. And then under communication, we regularly review our internal policies and procedures. And thanks to our new security analysts, we will be doing an even more in-depth review this year. And we consistently communicate risks between library and IT, within library administration and IT. Another fun part is monitoring cyber threats worldwide. You probably see these come across your news feeds. We monitor those as well. So with our additional resources and ever-growing need in this area of cybersecurity, we are working towards a comprehensive approach for addressing cybersecurity risk. And I have a question slide, I think. What questions do you have for myself and for Sean?
In your role as information technology manager, what do you assess as the biggest risk that the library is exposed to?
That's a great question, and I wish John were here to roll off his statistics because he has these right at the top of his brain. Our biggest risk is really ransomware through the part that we're addressing with the training constantly through staff. That is our biggest risk. I think it's 90% of attacks come through that channel. So we do a lot of cybersecurity awareness training.
And then, I haven't met John, but is John, when you say his role as security analyst, is that both physical and cybersecurity?
Yeah, great question. So we have a physical security specialist, and if you were here in November, when we last talked about security, we had cybersecurity with myself presenting that, and then we also had Tad Twidwell, who is our physical security specialist, and we work really closely with him. He actually has a workspace in the IT area, and we spend a lot of time together because our systems are very intertwined.
Thank you.
So, Jeffrey, just to give you some context, the county does audits. And so one of them is they did a physical audit of county assets, but they also did library assets as well as Parks and Rec, and then generated a report where they came back and shared to us. And so we were able to go through and see where we were succeeding on the physical side and where we needed to see improvements. And you'll see later today, we're talking about doing key card and camera type of upgrades for the system. So we have a unified county-wide system that it was built as the technology emerged fairly patchwork and not in a unified manner, but since the technology is stabilized, we're able to standardize on one platform. The audit's also done a cybersecurity audit, and then has done what they call enterprise or IT governance. So the library sits as a member on that governance council for the enterprise and about the 4,200 employees of the county. Municipalities and counties, because of the amount of assets they have both in collecting taxes and generally they tend to be the largest employers in areas, are susceptible for particularly ransomware, and you'll probably read a lot about that in the news. So it's something that we take really seriously. And again, as you see in the news, the first person or active shooter gets a lot of headlines. We just deal with people that are having various types of problems in their lives. So whether it's mental health problems or trauma or PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, we get, because we're open to the general public, we have lots of issues with the public who are struggling. So part of that is also training our staff, because we don't have, maybe if in a metro area you would have a security staff. We take the approach that every employee is responsible for the building's security, and that it's called securing the building. And staff are trained on how to do that and how to talk with patrons. And then we have strong partnerships. If that conflict cannot be resolved, we have strong partnerships with the police force in the area, and we engage them, and they come and deal that. We try to let the patron make a decision where that's not going to occur, but if their behavior is such, then we just call the police and they deal with it. Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And I'd like to invite Dave to come up and give the blow-by-blow, the exciting blow-by-blow of the budget presentation.
All right. Thank you, Sean. And yeah, I'll just quickly go over what happened on our trip out to the BOCC on Thursday, May 19th. I think the presentation itself went rather well. The board did have a few questions and maybe comments on our capital plan. There was some questions on whether making improvements to the current Spring Hill location was appropriate, or if we should be exploring other options down in Spring Hill. There's a commissioner that I think would like us to try to still partner with the school district down there. The Blue Valley project, that was brought up. While that's not current for the 2023, there's at least one commissioner who expressed some concerns about doing anything at current Blue Valley location. We did get some questions about where Corinth replacement is in the order of things, and what's going on with Prairie Village. Let's see, what else? We had some questions about our key performance areas, or indicators, and just whether we were measuring the right things, and if we're making progress in the areas we think we need to be making progress in. We also talked to the board a little bit about as part of that, then the question came about the positions that we're asking for 2023. There was just some confusion, I think, in terms of a social media coordinator position that we're requesting and how that differentiated between the digital media coordinator position that we've just recently added for this year. So we did talk about that a little bit. And then we got paid a very nice compliment by our very own Commissioner Hanslick about our e-resources and how great those are, and just how tremendous the opportunity is. And she made a plug, so I don't know how many people were actually listening to our presentation, but she definitely paid us some good compliments there, and just wanted to encourage the community to reach out and take a look at those e-resources. So with that, we're hoping to hear back from the BOCC, well, actually probably from CMO, our county manager's office, and budget, whether the BOCC is going to have any follow-up with us. They should be wrapping up their department, agency, office presentations hopefully this afternoon. I know those are going long. They've had a long day. And then they do have their deliberations scheduled, as the BOCC should be meeting next week on June 16th in the afternoon to go through any of those questions, concerns, and kind of make some final determinations on what they want to put in their maximum budget. So I don't know, Sean and David Sims and Tricia and myself were all out there that Thursday. So I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that we aligned with the county manager's office for the 0.1 mil rollback. That's what she presented, and that's what was presented in our budget, and that's what we had presented to you and approved. So, again, there were no one was asking for more or less than that. They thought that was fair and reasonable, and I think the commission, from my understanding, really appreciated that you were being fiscally responsible and had proposed that reduction. I thought overall it was smooth, they understood, and really only one commissioner had issues with the Spring Hill. We and repeated with her that we had done a study to this, working with the community and looking at the feasibility of it, and there was just, it made no financial sense or for where the community was situated in kind of proximity when you looked at it, that the existing library is centrally located and that the school is positioned in a way that has no arterials that children, if you couldn't drive a car, you couldn't get to the library, and that was problematic.
Yeah, it was a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, David. And finally, I would like to invite Megan Mascara-Jackson to come up and talk about the inaugural Juneteenth celebration for the community. And Megan and Alyssa's going to be giving that presentation, and Megan stands. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alyssa Andre. I'm the External Communication Manager here at the library. Megan is the Assistant Branch Manager at the Lenexa City Center location. She is also the library's representative on the committee who is planning the Juneteenth observance event in county, but she regrets that she can't be here tonight and so asked me to step in. So I know you guys heard a little bit about our Juneteenth plans last month in the summer reading presentation, but now that it's June, we want to take a little more time to highlight the events the library is participating in. So we're obviously not the first and not the only group to commemorate the day, but as you know, we're all about learning and creating access for our community to learn about topics that interest them. So we're excited to do what we do best in collaboration with our county partners this year on Juneteenth events and activities. So just a little bit about Juneteenth. For those who might not be familiar, might be watching, Juneteenth has been celebrated throughout the United States for more than a century. It is a recognition and celebration of the end of slavery in the United States. And so June 19th marks the date in which Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865, ensuring the freedom of all enslaved people in the state. And so Juneteenth has been an annual celebration across the country, and it became a national holiday in 2021. And last October, the Board of County Commissioners made it a county holiday. So here we are. Essentially, next slide, please. we did collaborate with some county agencies and departments on the June 11th kickoff event and then the June 19th observation, and also have put together some events within the library. So we have the June 19th story time with Newbery and Caldecott award-winning author and illustrator duo Carol Boston Weatherford and Jeffrey Boston Weatherford. It's a special feature story time. We're really excited for this. It is virtual. We have the Walk and Read, which is June 11th at the Arts and Heritage Center and June 19th through 30th at Johnson County Square. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Our Community Matters Family Book Club, which is today actually, so reading the book Black Boy Joy. All our adult book discussions, which are all full in the month of June, are reading books about the African American experience. And so some of these are highlighted on this bookmark here, which I've given you all a copy of. And then we have Joko Wright's blog, Writing Prompts, which we're excited to share after the month of June. And then our bookmarks and digital resource lists. So we have some librarians that have put together some really great resources for patrons to learn more about the day. Next slide, please. So the two big events that we're partnering with for our walk and reads are the Juneteenth week kickoff event. This is at the Johnson County Arts and Heritage Center. It's June 11th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's a family-friendly event built with community partners, and it provides an opportunity to honor the history, celebrate Juneteenth with a community art project, music, food, and more. So we'll have a table at the event, as well as the walk and read. And then the Juneteenth observance at Johnson County Square is put together through a team of folks from across the county. And that's going to be June 19th, 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. It's going to feature community speakers, historical readings, musical performers, and a food truck as well. And so the highlight, obviously, is the walk and read, which, if you're not familiar with the walk and read, you read one story as you walk down a path that's on a sign, and then you turn around and read a second story as you walk back along the path. So we're excited to feature the books Opal Lee and What It Means to Be Free, the story of Juneteenth, and then Change Sings by the poet Amanda Gorman. And so you can find more information about all the county's Juneteenth events. There's several events all across Johnson County at jocogov.org/Juneteenth. And if you attend one of the events, you can use the hashtag JocoJuneteenth to celebrate as well. Thanks so much. Any questions?
Thank you, Alyssa. That concludes the county librarian's report.
Thank you very much, Sean. All right, I guess we're on to the consent agenda.
I move the Library Board of Directors approve the consent agenda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I have I'm sorry, David, I have one piece of information that I forgot. This is, you may not know this, but this is Fred's 40th year serving as legal counsel for the Johnson County Library. And I just want to honor that legacy. We have cupcakes at the back of the room. Please help yourself to one after the meeting. 40 years is a lot. And then I can just also say that Fred, with my time here, has been just a tremendous support, a font of knowledge, insight on the historical way that the county works, and a tremendous friend and legal counsel. So again, thank you, Fred, for 40 years of service.
Would you like to say something, Fred?
Before Fred does, though, as the newest member of the board, I just want to say that, Fred, you've been doing this for 40 years. You haven't missed a step. Fred has done a great job onboarding me and getting me up to speed on things. So thank you so much, Fred, for everything you do for our library and for our county.
Well, it has been a high honor. And, going back to a little boy being taken to the Broad Ripple Library by his mother in Indianapolis, reading has been such an important part of my life, and being able to work with such fantastic people. These librarians are just the best of the best, so it's been a great honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fred. All right, we are moving on here. Let's see. I think we're on to our old business. Anybody like to make a motion?
I move pursuant to KSA 12-1225BA5 that the Board of Directors of the Johnson County Library appoint Tricia Solentrop to serve as County Librarian for the Johnson County Library commencing on the first day of July 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, with that, it is. Well, it's my pleasure to officially announce Tricia Solentrop as will be the new Johnson County Librarian. I'm not sure which one she will be, but it doesn't matter, I guess. A couple things I want.
Presidents.
Right.
The best.
Right. She's made no mistakes so far. All right, well, Tricia's been with the library for over 20 years, including the last 12 as the deputy librarian. So during that time, she served as the interim county librarian at various times. Lately, in the recent survey, our library is 90% approval rating, and that is not possible without a very good, competent number 2, for sure. But rather than go through her resume, I want to say a few words about the process. When I first heard that Sean was planning to retire, my mind immediately, went to that we'd be doing a national search, and that would be needed, and wondered just how it would work. But however, as the board began discussions, we decided we already had a well-qualified candidate who we should talk to first, rather than spending tens of thousands of dollars on a national search if we are ultimately going to hire Tricia. After hearing Tricia's presentation, I guess speaking for myself here, her answers to our questions, her vision for the library, and the confidence others had in her, it was obvious that Tricia is the right person to be the next librarian. And while I'm sure a national search would have brought us other qualified people with good visions as well, I'm certain we would not have found a more qualified person. So meanwhile, we would have spent $30,000 or more on the process. We'd have delayed the hire several more months down the road, and worse, we could have ended up with someone who wasn't ready day one. So without further ado, I officially, introduce Tricia, since I think everybody here kind of knows her. So does anybody else want to say something, or is Tricia, do you want to say something? Sean?
I want to say I couldn't be prouder of Tricia, and the board. I think just a tremendous decision, tremendous for this community. It brings all sorts of skills. When I hired for this, my number one question when interviewing with the administrative team was to Tricia, is like, why aren't you doing this job? Why are they hiring me? And she said, because I'm smarter than you. And, and that has been true for 10 years, and she's still smarter than me. It has been a delight. She is more than capable of doing it a decade ago, and I'm thrilled that she's decided to go ahead and do this now. And it's I just know that the library, with the board and with Tricia, is in such good hands. And Fred, of course, my friend Fred.
So I'd like to just amend that memory of yours. I did say because I was smart, not smarter than you. Thank you very much. Those are kind words. And I definitely would not be the librarian I am today without working with Sean. So thank you.
Does that mean now is the time to rah-rah you? I know that when Sean gave me his letter of retirement resignation at a Starbucks, not what I thought that meeting was going to be about, at all, to say, he's like, the institution might need to say goodbye, but really it's okay for me if we don't do anything. So I don't know if we're going to ambush you later or somebody's going to ambush you now, because I literally don't know. So I'll take this opportunity to say that for the last 5+ years that I've been on this board, it has been a pleasure to work with you, Sean, to lock horns, to argue, to battle, to spar, to have a grand old time, some fascinating conversations. When I came into library world, I was absolutely blind. I had no idea what I'd gotten myself into. And so it was a learning curve that Sean very much helped pour into, and along with the rest of the admin staff. So I guess on behalf of the board, I will be the first to say happy trails, have fantastic adventures, and thank you very much for your service, your time, your leadership through some unprecedented times between bed bugs and cooties and all kinds of bizarre things we've had to deal with. We have kept this institution going for our community, and as a fairly young retiree, I think you could certainly enjoy those laurels, and if you get bored, you know, you can come back and do cool stuff too. So thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Take him as a volunteer.
So we move on to the next item, and this is kind of adding with Scott talked about, which is naming. Just so we're really clear, that's the library board's building, and you can name it however you want. But what we did is worked with a librarian and the city to kind of look at the historic areas of the community and the region and come up with ideas that might be palatable or suggestions, because it just didn't make sense to call it Antioch since it's not going to be on Antioch Road. And so the two things that the city and the library kind of agreed on out of all those names was the Alfonso and Mary Webb Library. And again, just for historic context, the Webb family was part of the Brown versus Board of Topeka. It was a case that went before called the Webb versus School District 290 court case in 1949 to do with desegregating schools. And again, that happened right in the city of Merriam. And then the second option is the Merriam Plaza Library, and that would kind of follow like the Lenexa City Center Library. That would be part of a campus. Again, it's this is just an informational item, and if those two don't work, then the staff can come back with alternatives. But with the analysis, working with the city, really it is the library staff's recommendation and mine that it would be called the Alfonso and Mary Webb Library. But again, that's where we are today, and ultimately would look for a decision at a future date. And just, again, if we can communicate and make sure we can come up with some options that you guys would like to have it named. Any questions on that?
Were there other ones?
Those were the two that we could agree. I think what, did we come up with 20 as a master list? And then it came down to two that the city and the library were like, these are two that we can bring forward that we both support. Do you have a follow-up question, Nitra? We can come up with more. It's just we started with 20 and working with, not to say, but just working with our partner, we got to two that we could agree with.
My only concern, although the Webb family, and obviously this case was a huge part of this area and so many things that happened, my only concern is that naming them after individuals or a family may give the perception that money was given or that it was a sponsored name. And the fact that this would be setting a precedent to name a library after individuals, I'm not sure. I need to digest that a little bit.
Yep, absolutely. And I think from us, the staff standpoint, we weren't thinking it so much of as a family, but more as an event that was encapsulated by the family's name and the legal case. But I think it's a really good point. Up until this point, we have not reached out to the Webb family to seek their approval. We would be looking for kind of an indication from the library board. But again, I think it's probably going to be something you discuss quite a bit.
And the Merriam Plaza Library, my initial thoughts are that's very vanilla and safe. That's the only reason I was curious as to what some of the other options were and if there were any that were maybe even close to agreement, like top 5 or.
We can go back and revisit it. And we can also give you the comprehensive list if you would like, but since we're in such close partnership with this, the library and myself thought it was important that we would start off our relationship where we both agreed what we called that since we're on their kind of campus. So why don't we, as an action item, put the comprehensive list out onto the portal so you can review it. And if these two aren't acceptable, then we can definitely go back with the city and come up with other options. I think that's part of the fun of building a new library is getting to name it, and it doesn't happen that often. So spending time on it, I think, is a good thing.
And we're also a year plus away before it opens. I don't think we have to rush through this today, but anybody else have any?
Any other thoughts
right.
on this? Okay. And the final, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yep, the final issue is the Gartner work authorization approval for planning interior and exterior. And here, what we're looking is that the library board has already approved a capital replacement program. And the purpose of the CRP is to investigate and evaluate the conditions of major building components. Work planned for Gartner includes replacing a portion of the flat roof, electrical improvements, paving, entrance and enhancements, ADA corrections, security building automation. We've selected the contractor, this Universal Construction Company. Again, so the entire scope of the work is anticipated to last for about 2 months. While the work was projected to occur late this summer, early fall, external factors relating to construction material procurement currently make it difficult to determine a start date. At this time, we are only requesting approval of the work order authorization, and a request for the building closure will be brought to an upcoming board meeting. Once the material lead times are confirmed and a definite start date can be set. Part of this is being able to signal to the construction that you've authorized it so they can go ahead and start buying this without taking the risk of not having that authorization. That's kind of, and we're looking at a cost of $423,553 is the total cost. Any questions?
This wouldn't, if we decide to, whatever Scott presented about the rural initiative, would this have any, it would be a problem that we're redoing something twice?
Yeah, this would not, this is Gartner.
What's that? Oh,
Gartner,
that's
sorry.
right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, this is Gartner. And part of something that you've already approved earlier as part of the capital replacement project, what we're looking is just authorization from you to go forward with the project.
All right, any motions?
I move to approve the work order authorization with Universal Construction Company for interior and exterior work at Gardner Library in the amount not to exceed $423,553. Construction company, sorry.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passed. And let's see, do I have anything else? I don't think we do we? All right, nope. All right, with that, if nobody else has any comments, does anybody like to make a motion to?
I move the Library Board of Directors adjourn.
Whoa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, dismissed.